welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to share with you a review of a brand new holiday collection from Too Faced. It's the Grand Hotel Cafe collection. So if you're interested in hearing a review about this collection and seeing swatches, then just keep on watching. So the Grand Hotel Cafe was released to Sephora, Ulta, and Too Faced online, and it retails for $49 on all three sites. So this is the packaging, and once you open it, it comes with this little house that kind of just looks like a gingerbread house that is very decorated like Too Faced's style. And once you open it, you have 3 palettes inside, so you just unbox it like this, and you also have a mini Better Than Sex mascara. So getting into the actual palettes, so you get 3 mini eyeshadow palettes in this collection, and each of them come with 6 eyeshadows and 1 face powder, a blush, or a bronzer. So in each collection you have 3 different kind of scents or layouts. So the first one is Peppermint Mocha, then you have Eggnog Latte and Gingerbread Cookie, and all of these are scented related to what they're called. They all smell kind of the same to me. It's just very holiday, like peppermint, chocolate, and gingerbread. So they kind of smell the same, but they're definitely a different scent than the chocolate bar palettes. So the layout and the colors in each of these palettes is what really caught my attention. So the Peppermint Mocha one is more cranberry, and that's what I used on my eyes today, and then it comes with a more like true pink blush. The Eggnog one is a lot more warm, and this was like my favorite when I was just looking at it online. It has more warm tone brown shades and a gold and more of a peach blush. And then the Gingerbread one is more of a smoky eye look. So you get a lot of deeper shades, you get also a gold shade, and then you get the bronzer. So I am wearing the bronzer today, and I'm wearing shadows kind of from all 3 of the different palettes today. So as you guys can tell, the shadows are a really big size, and so are the face powders. So for $49, it's basically $16 each for each palette, which is an awesome deal. So just to give you guys a comparison to one of the smaller Too Faced palettes, this is the Peanut Butter and Jelly palette, and this is a $36 palette. And this has 9 eyeshadows, but the pans are smaller than this. So in this palette, you get 31 ounces of product, and then in this you get 24. So this is maybe a third smaller, but it's $20 less for the amount of product you're getting. So in terms of the value, it is a really good deal. So the value and layout of this collection is definitely a plus, but the biggest con for me is the pigmentation of a lot of the shadows. I did not find them as pigmented as I wanted them to be, especially the shimmer shades. I think that the matte shadows are pretty pigmented, but the shimmer shadows are definitely not nearly as pigmented as some other Too Faced formulas. And I will swatch each of the palettes individually, but just to give you guys an idea. So there's a shade in the Eggnog palette called Eggnog Latte, and this is like the shade that I would wear on my lid every single day. And when I went to swatch it, it's just very patchy, and you can see it kind of shows up when I swatch it on my finger, but when I go to blend it out, it kind of just ends up very patchy, and it kind of disappears into nothing as I blend it out, which is not what I want at all. And definitely from all of these palettes, this is the one that I would go to put on my lid on like an everyday basis, just a champagne or gold color. And if it disappears to nothing, then I really can't work with it. I don't like really having to pack on eyeshadows a lot. I feel like it ends up looking muddy or just not as good quality as I want it to look. So I was really disappointed with that shadow, as well as one of the shadows in the Peppermint Mocha palette. This is the shade Christmas Blend. So both of these are the neutral shades that I would wear on a daily basis. All of the other shades I probably wouldn't wear as often. So I was disappointed that the more neutral shadows weren't as pigmented. And this doesn't swatch as well. This is more of a patchy shade. So that is very light, and you can see that it's more like champagne pigmented in the pan. And when I blend it out, it kind of gets very, very powdery and disappears into nothing. So some of the shimmer shades do apply better than those two, but I feel like if I can't use the neutral gold champagne colors, I'm not going to use this collection as much, because that's what I put on my lid like 5 days a week. I'm not going to put on like this purpley eye look all the time. So if I can't get a really good solid neutral look with this collection, then I'm definitely not going to gravitate towards it as much. But there are really shimmery shades in this collection and more pigmented shades. It's just not the colors that I would wear every day. So I'm going to get into the swatches of all 3 palettes, and I'm going to start off with Peppermint Mocha. And so this has more of the cranberry shades, and this is what I use to do most of my eye look today. And the first shade is Peppermint Cream, which is a more white color. You can see that's a bit chalky too. Next is Christmas Blend, and that's the color I swatched just a minute ago that isn't very pigmented. But yeah, that barely shows up at all, and it makes me so mad because I love shades like this. And then next we have Peppermint Mocha, which is more of a burgundy brown shimmer shade. And this is a shade that is a little bit more pigmented. And then next you have Candy Cane, which is just a baby pink color. So that's an incredibly light shade, and you can barely notice the pink tones to it. And then Sprinkle is what's on my lid today, and it looks really deep in the pan, but on my lid it just ended up looking a little bit more sheer. Yeah, so it ends up looking more washed out than the pigmentation it has in the pan. And then Coffee Chip is like a shimmery brown color. So you guys can tell these are not very pigmented at all, especially for the pigmentation it shows up in the pan. So I was mostly upset with this particular palette. I'll also swatch the blush. This is in the shade Santa Baby, and this is more of a creamy formula. And that is pretty pigmented for a blush. I think this does apply pretty well. I don't like this shade as much as the other blush, which I am wearing today, but I find the formula of this a lot more creamy than some of the shadows in here. So those are all the shades in Peppermint Mocha, and you guys can tell they are not very pigmented. They just feel like they're watered down from what I'm seeing in the pan. Like, it doesn't resonate true to the colors that I'm seeing in here, which is pretty disappointing. So next I'm going to move on to the palette Eggnog Latte, and this is the warmer brown palette, and this is the one that I thought I was going to like the most, but it has a gold shade that does not show up. So this color is Frosty Nog, and this is more of a creamy white color. And then Eggnog Latte, and this just has like bigger chunks of glitter, and I think that's why it ends up having so much fallout. Then Iced Coffee is this shimmery golden brown shade. And this is probably the most pigmented from this collection so far. And then Skinny Latte is more of a matte brown shade. And this one I find pretty pigmented as well. It shows up pretty light, but it is more of a light shade, so this is a good transition color. And I did find the next shimmer shades pretty pigmented. This is the shade Cold Brew, and it has more of a duochrome to it. It's like a silvery gold color. So I got this shade everywhere, but it's Cold Brew, and I find this pretty pigmented for how it shows up in the pan, especially if I'm going to put it on my lid. And then Central Perk is one of the more pigmented shades too. It's a green color, and that is a really, really pretty shade. So I do like this shade. Then the blush in here is Peach Cobbler, and this is what I'm wearing today. And then again, this is another creamy formula. The blush is a better quality than the actual eyeshadows. So that is the blush. It is pretty pigmented, and it has a better finish to it. So these are all the shades in Eggnog Latte. I think these are way more pigmented and better quality than the peppermint shades. I think they're a little bit more true to the color in the pan compared to the peppermint shades. Definitely not perfect, but it's definitely better than the first swatches. So lastly, we have the Gingerbread Cookie palette, which has more of the smoky colors and more like shimmery shades. So this first color is Ginger Cream, and this is what I did to set my eye look today. And this is more of a cream color. Also very, very, very light. It's basically turning into nothing when I swatch it. I think it looked fine when I applied it on my eye today, but I was using it as a base, so I wasn't really looking for like a big color payoff. So next we have the shade Maple Syrup, which is more of a cool tone brown shade. And this is a more pigmented color as well. It doesn't look super pigmented on camera, but it is blending out nicely. Next is Ginger Snap, and this does have some good pigmentation to it. It's more of a coppery gold color. So you guys can tell that that does swatch really nicely and really consistent. It doesn't end up patchy. And then next is Winter Dream, which is like a shimmery periwinkle color. And this is a more consistent color. I just kind of sheared it out a little bit. It is sheer, but it's not patchy. And then next we have Cup of Joe, which is like a really, really deep brown that has some shimmer to it. And this is also a more pigmented shade. And next you have Black Coffee, which is just a matte black color. So you guys can tell that is not the most pigmented black color. It does sheer out and end up looking a little bit gray. And then lastly, we have the bronzer in the shade Gingerbread. And I'm wearing this today. I don't like it as much as Chocolate Soleil. I feel like it has more of a red undertone to it. But I think it does actually apply really nicely. It does have a good formula. so you guys can tell it is pigmented, and it is a nice color. It's just a little too red for me. So these are all the shades in the gingerbread palette. Some of them are pigmented, some of them are less pigmented, especially the darker shades. You would think the really deep colors would apply really nicely, but I think it's just not as good quality as some of the other Too Faced palettes. So overall, I am like 50-50 on this collection. It is a really good value, but I would have paid even like $10-15 more to get those quality eyeshadows. I love the layout just on the Too Faced site, or just seeing pictures on Instagram and stuff. All of the colors, like, they just look so pretty. But for the color payoff, it's definitely not as pigmented as I would want. And I do have a lot of Too Faced palettes, so I do have a high expectation with their eyeshadows. They're one of my favorite formulas, but these are not as good quality as the chocolate bar palettes, or even other limited edition palettes like the powder makeup palette. I don't think it's as good of quality as that for the pigmentation. So you guys can let me know what you think about this collection. I'm so bummed because the colors in here are so pretty, but the pigmentation is not there. And if I have to work to use an eyeshadow, I'm not going to go towards it. I'm going to go towards like my other palettes, or my chocolate bar palettes that are a lot more pigmented and a lot easier to use. Alright guys, so that's everything for this video. Please let me know what you think about this collection in the comments down below. Do you think it's worth the $50, or do you think it's not worth it because of the pigmentation? Just let me know in the comments, and also check out my description bar for any open giveaways that I have going on right now, as well as all of my social media links. And if you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I'll talk to you guys in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.